Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski. Hi, we're back with Gerry Lindgren. Gerry is back on the mainland USA for his 60th high school reunion. So we'll talk about that, talk about his trip to Russia, and get an update on his life in Hawaii. Welcome today back on the podcast, Gerry Lindgren.
Aloha. Hi. How you
Jerry.
doing? Hi.
Jerry,
Okay.
let's jump in with a couple particular events and races, and then we'll talk about some more overall things. But one thing that I found interesting, just amazing, was your story of your visit to Russia when you got there early ahead of the team and went running and your interaction there. What can you tell me about that story? It was such a crazy story.
Oh yes, this is a crazy story. All right. Like you said, we got to Russia ahead of the team, and we were in small groups going to different places to race. When we got into Moscow airport, we were about 18 hours ahead of what the team was coming in.
Right.
So we had to wait for them. And I decided that I would just go for a run around the outside of the airport. And so I put on my running stuff and I went out through a side door and took off around the airport. And I got way down to the other end of the airport. And suddenly there's a bunch of military people in trucks there. And they're getting out of the trucks with their guns with bayonets on them. And I figured they must be doing some kind of a military exercise. And so I go way around them and keep going. Then they all get back in their trucks and head down the road. And then they stop again, and everybody ahead of me, and they all get out of their trucks and start running across the field again. And so I go around them again and try to steer away from them so I don't disturb them. And I get around the airport and I'm coming the other side, and darn that darn truck, they all got back in their trucks, and a couple more trucks came from the other side, and pretty soon there's all kinds of military people. At that point, I decided that maybe they were looking for me. Yes, they were, because running around an airport is just not done in Russia.
Yeah. What happened? What happened
Yeah.
with that? You didn't
Well,
speak Russian yet, right?
No, at the time I didn't speak Russian, and nobody there spoke English or wanted to. I was arrested.
Wow.
And I was taken to, I don't know, it must have been a workplace for the night. And I was placed in a small room on the second floor, and the door closed and locked itself, and I was inside. And so I just slept. And I was there all night.
Do you think anybody knew where you were?
No. I didn't know what was going on. In the morning, just before the sun came out, all of a sudden there was blaring music and instruction coming over the intercom, and all of the people on the second floor started doing marching in cadence, stomp, and then all the doors opened and everybody came out of their little cubicles and dressed and marched down the hall, and then they all went down to the first floor. They all went out into the field someplace, and they were going to do agricultural work. I had no idea what was going on, so I put my shoe in the door so it wouldn't close. And sure enough, the door came closed and got caught on my shoe and wouldn't close all the way. And I was left there all alone. I waited until everybody was gone, and then I came down to the first floor and looked through the doorway, and there was still somebody in the office there, but they didn't see me. So I went back up to the second floor and went back into the room, and there was a window there that opened, and there was a drain pipe. There was a drained water from the roof down to the first floor, and I jumped on and I saw from my room, I could see that there was a plane landing someplace near there, so that must be the airport. So I shimmied down the drain pipe and took off running for the
Oh
airport.
my gosh, I didn't realize you were taken away from the airport. Wow.
Yes. And when I got to the airport, I came in through the side door I'd gone out through, and there was the American team. Never so happy to see people in my life. And I was saved. Then they acted like nothing had ever happened, and so I just acted the same way. And nothing was ever done about it. Several of the other people had similar problems when they came in because they were given group visa to get into Russia, but somehow the pictures had been put on the wrong passport or the wrong visa, and so some of the people had to go to jail again until it was figured out. All kinds of things just to try to make the American team, so they were.
I had talked to Herb Gurman, an 800 meter, and he talked about going like on a bus ride that went for hours just to go downtown.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, that bus ride was something else too, because when they did pick us up, they put us on buses that didn't have any springs. And everything that you hit was a bump in your butt. Hard seats. There wasn't the soft seats like on an American bus. And it hurt. They took us for hours going through the city doing this and that. They even took us down to the Dnieper River and took us on a river cruise for a couple hours.
One other thing he said is in the hotel he stayed in, the elevator was broken and he was on a high floor.
Yes. Yeah, the elevator was broken and the water pressure on the upper floors was very low. So I'd have to turn on the water from the sink and put a container under there and leave it that way so that there'd be enough water to flush the toilet.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I was going to ask you then about the racing. How long after you arrived was the meet? This was another dual meet.
Yeah. We were there about 4 days before the meet, and they had Western food for a little bit, but then we ended up eating borscht and whatever they had. They had a soft drink that we had with dinner and lunch sometimes that saved us, but they ran out of that for some reason, and the only thing we had to drink was vodka. They had lots of vodka.
That's great. What the coaching there? The U.S. had a team. Was your coach with you?
He was one of the team coaches.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, he was included. So my high school coach was there also. Yeah.
And let's jump to your reunion. You have a 60th year reunion event this week.
Yeah.
I don't remember the size of your class. How big of an event is this?
I think there were close to 300 or 400 people graduating.
And so 60 years later, do you know how many are expected to attend from the class?
I'm not sure. There's probably 20 or 30.
There's so many races we can talk about, and we had some great descriptions of your races. You've had a lot of close races. Of course, your 6-mile world record was the one race with Steve Prefontaine. We talked about meeting him and your relationship with him. But the one race where it was very close, there's some story that maybe there was a discussion of a tie early on in the race. Have you heard of those stories?
I've heard it.
Yeah,
my coach was spewing.
Oh, really? That's where it came from. Okay. And do you remember that race? Yeah.
Yes, I remember it closely. Yeah. In cross country, I would always take off
Yeah.
hard and I'd get a big lead on everybody, and it was always easy going. I never was beaten unless I was running
Hmm.
injured. Tracy Smith beat me in one conference championship because in the end I re-injured the ankle and had a hard time
Hmm.
finishing, and he caught me. And Pre beat me when they had the a dual meet with Oregon because again I just injured myself and I was running injured. But other than those, I think I always won by a big margin because there was nobody around me halfway through the race, and I could just do whatever I
Yeah, your
wanted.
margin of win in many of those NCAA, especially on the track, was significant
Mm.
seconds. I want to go
Oh.
jump back to the steeplechase too. How
Mm.
how was your jumping ability? What was your experience?
Yeah, I never was good at the steeplechase. I could do well between
Right.
the steeples, but when I tried to go over those things, I could never get up
Hmm.
high enough. I remember falling so many times trying to get over that. I couldn't get my foot up over to land on top of the hurdle
Right.
right.
On those
Uh,
old cross country courses, some of the races are recorded, but there wasn't hurdling on those in the NCAA, right? Those
mhm.
were up hilly courses. And what was better for you? Did it make any difference to you, track or cross country? Did you think that you had a better approach to racing on either surface, or didn't it matter to you?
During track season, if I was running well, I liked track better than cross
Hmm.
country. But if I wasn't running well on the during track season, then I preferred cross country.
Yeah, yeah.
But it changed all the time.
One thing I wanted to ask you about was your coaching. In Hawaii, you were doing coaching. And had you considered that you would ever be a coach? And how did you get into coaching there?
When I came to Hawaii, yeah, I drifted into
Mm.
coaching. I think some of the people I met here were coaching each
Hmm.
other and they pushed me into it a little bit. So I started the Coconut Roadrunners Club just because there were a lot of people that wanted to be coached.
What kind of level of performers were in the Coconut Club at the beginning?
In the beginning, there were all kinds of different levels. Some people were just casual runners. I had a couple of very good runners. One of them in particular was a
Hmm.
Mexican kid that ran extremely well. I used to run with them up Kapiolani Park and then up over Diamond
Mm.
Head and to another park on the other side and then around that and then back up and over Diamond Head and around Kapiolani Park again. This kid was good. He could keep up with me the whole way. He would run right behind me. One time I tried picking it up and making him run a little bit harder on the way back. And every time I picked it up, he could pick it up too and stay there. He and one other guy that I had that was pretty good too. Then there came to a time when he tried this way, and I had trouble catching
Wow.
him. Then he decided maybe he could run well. So one of the runs, he just ran away from me. And the guy became one of the best runners in the state. And he could win almost every
Hmm.
race. Just amazingly good. He moved to Texas, I think, and he was running extremely well in Texas for a while, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. I don't know whatever happened to
Right.
him.
How did you deal
Yeah.
with that range of runners? Obviously, there were a lot of people who couldn't keep up with you two.
Hmm. I did what I could with the fast people, encouraged the people behind to do it, run faster. Always we were trying to get everybody to run
Hmm.
faster, but just whatever
Hmm.
happened, yeah, you can't try to make everybody a great runner, but some of them came out so that they could be pretty good runners.
Hmm. Over many years, I was running with the Hash House Harriers, the kind of social group. Do you know about them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we travel a lot. Our personal vacations are often to Hash House Harrier events, and one friend of mine is uh, Russell Bailey, And
Oh,
you raced against his father in a 5K. I think you set a national record in that race. So it was a international race. I don't remember where it was. Do you remember that race?
I do
Oh,
not
okay,
recall the
okay.
race.
Yeah, it was I think it was a 5K, but I just saw the name go by. I was
Mm.
talking with Ann O'Dane, the Kiwi runner. I brought up Bill Bailey, the record holder. I said, "Wait a minute, I think you
Hmm.
ran against him." It's just a
Yeah,
small world with all that.
yeah. I beat him indoors at 2 miles in Portland one time
Ah,
when I was having a really good
hmm.
season. Yeah.
And we talked about you
Mm.
missed 1963 with the injury, with the I think a broken
Mm.
bone was diagnosed.
Yeah, broken. Yeah, broken bone in my foot, metatarsal
Was that
injury.
related to the
Mm.
later injuries you had in your ankle, or did that heal completely, do you think?
No, when I was a sophomore in high school in '62, I was just starting to run good. I ran a 4:32 miles, beat everybody from
Hmm.
Rogers, won a race, and then this popped up and put me out for the season. And I never, I didn't get back to running until after the state track meet was over.
Ah, okay. Then your later issues with your ankle, do you think it was related, or did you take enough time off on?
No, the ankle was sprains that I
Ah,
used to get. I have chronic sprains in both ankles. I've come out. I still have them. If I put my foot down wrong, I can sprain an ankle real
mhm.
easy. That was a separate
Right.
issue.
Now, did you do
Hmm.
coaching with the teams at Hawaii University? That's some more
Yeah,
coaching,
I,
yeah.
yeah. When my Roadrunners Club, the real good runners that I had were
Mhm.
done or gone, and the coach, the head track coach at Hawaii, hired me to run with their distance
Ah,
runners. Yeah, so I took care of the distance running and cross
and
country.
how did you getting to work with those runners? Did they know who you were? You're from a different generation of running, but a famous name.
Yeah, they knew the
Hmm.
name.
Right.
Yeah, and they were pleased to have me come and help them get where they wanted to
Yeah.
go. But they were a little intimidated by running, and they none of them had been that good. I taught them to change the pace suddenly.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I wanted to get them to be able to do. And we had a cross country race here. It's fort around a golf course in
Hmm.
Kaneohe, a military golf course. And when the race was coming close, I took them over there to set up the course and to run on it. And I put a colored rock right at the bottom of a hill with about a half a mile to go in the race. And I told them when they get to the
To
race
the Rock, yeah.
and they hit this rock, yeah, I want everybody to sprint to the top of this hill. It was only maybe less than half a
Hmm.
mile. And then whatever happens, happens, but just sprint the hill. And sure enough, they did it. They got away from everybody in this race and they ended up winning the race
Ah.
as a team. Ended up first and third and fifth and sixth and eighth and ninth for the team, and ended up with a big victory over two rated teams, one from Texas and the one from Oregon. But it changed a lot of their thinking and what they could accomplish. But the head coach saw this happening and became afraid of me that I would steal her program.
Ah.
They'd make me the coach instead of her because she didn't know what she was doing, and she argued all the time with her athletes, and a lot of people quit the
Hmm.
team. So she was afraid that I would take over the program, and so she didn't like me anymore.
Right. So that's interesting. So it was a tactical approach that really helped the victory. Do you think they were better runners that day, or it was the racing strategy?
Well, I think that it was, yeah, they were good
Yeah.
runners. They weren't really bad. They were in pretty
Hmm.
good shape. They just needed the impetus and to do something like
And
that.
the way you approached it, it's part psychological, and like you said, convincing them. I'm just fascinating what you think contributed to the win. Was it the physical, psychological? It's an upset.
Yes, it was a big upset. Neither one of these teams had been defeated all
Wow.
year, and they were both looking to be good against each other. And they didn't think that Hawaii would even be anything to consider in the
Mm,
race. But it turned out that Hawaii was something they should have
yeah.
considered. And until they came to the sprint part up that hill, there was nothing that showed real good expertise on this part of the Hawaiian
Hmm.
team. But when they sprinted, it just made all of the other people running the race were commenting nasty things about it.
Wild. Now, in your high school career, from the beginning, and your nighttime runs and your morning runs, you had done quite a bit of that on your own. There wasn't anybody that could run with you.
Yes.
And at what point was it also in university you did some training with the team, but you did individual runs. And then this running as things in Hawaii, you did your running with the running club that you started and the team. Were you also running separately? How much were you were still able to run more at that point? Yeah.
Yes, I was still running on my own also. I trained with them a couple days a week,
Ah.
and then I'd run on my own for 5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Were
a
you
lot of
doing
miles.
track work there in Hawaii?
Yes.
Yeah. And intervals and all that?
Yes. Yeah. That's how I got a lot of the things that I used when I was training them was that I would go on the track and try to do the same thing beforehand
Oh.
and see what was worked well. Yeah.
Ah. You did that for a few years with the team. Did that come to an end
Mm.
and you stayed connected to the university? The coaching? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. When I got the job at the university, I transferred from the team effect into just the University of Hawaii.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you moved around. Have you kept memorabilia from your running career on the mainland there with you? Do you have that stuff?
No, I
Oh,
don't. I had, but about 5 years ago, I decided that when I die, nobody else is going to know what any of this stuff is. It'll all be thrown away. So I packed it all up and I sent it to Vanelli's.
Mike Finelli's
Uh,
stuff. So he had it all, right?
and it was in his garage. And every once in a while, he'd post something on the online that had to do with my running, and it was good because people all over were hearing
Hmm.
about it. But then he suddenly
Yeah.
died, and I don't know. Apparently, somebody else took over all of his ring paraphernalia and was going to use it for something in a museum setting. But I haven't heard any, so I don't know what happened to
I
him.
will be talking fairly soon to his brother, Gerry. You may find out this week in your meeting. I'm sure you're going to be meeting a lot of people this week. It might come up, but I will be talking to
Mm-hmm.
Gerry soon, and if I find out anything, I'll let you know. Yeah, I'm sure. People
Okay,
are still
thank you. Yeah.
recovering from Mike Vanelli's death. Yeah, I guess the family knew for a while, but the public really wasn't aware that he was
Yeah.
dying. Yeah, it was a
Mm-hmm.
big deal. What can we talk about the book that
Okay.
by the shadow of Gerry Lindgren? Do you remember the process of that book getting written?
Yes, I remember the process very closely. I've been trying to write down what happened with my running career from for a long time. I had written several manuscripts. I rejected them all because I can't talk about myself. It's too much of a
Hmm.
burden. I had just about given up the idea of the memoirs at all. And then it came to my mind one in a dream one night that about the shadow writing the book. And so that's what it came out with. I didn't write the book, my shadow wrote the book. And then things could be said that couldn't otherwise have been said at all. And it was entertaining to read.
Yeah. Do you ever go back and read that book?
Yes, I
Oh
do once in
yeah,
a while.
yeah. It's a great one in the collection of books there. You can still get it on Amazon and Kindle. Everybody should get it if they're not familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's a Kindle book now.
yeah,
Yeah.
and do you remember the picture that's on the cover of the Kindle? I think it's got an R on it. So is that from a high school? That's a
Yeah, yeah, it's from a high school
yeah.
race. Yeah,
Okay, let's talk about how you're feeling about this reunion and coming back. Have you been back to the area? When was the last time?
about 5 years
Uh-huh.
ago, 6 years ago, I was here. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So
The area has changed.
are you excited and are you going to be doing any running while you're in the area now?
Yeah, I brought my running stuff just in case, uh, but I don't run fast anymore. I
Hmm.
just jog. Uh, so I'll get some running in, but not a lot.
And the big event, I think Jack Welch is having you and your coach on for a discussion Wednesday night. Do you know the
Hmm.
schedule?
No, I don't know the
Okay.
schedule yet. I don't know what is.
That's great.
Yeah.
If we talk about some personal questions, if you want to deal with them, how are you doing now? It's been a long career. You're a jogger now. How are you doing just overall?
Fine. I'm surviving. I'm old now or older, but I'm holding up pretty good. Not a lot of
That's
problems.
great. Yeah, it's really great that you share your time and your voice. People really enjoy. What interests me is certainly at this point, you have a sense of humor. You chuckle and laugh as you tell your stories. You enjoy it. As a coach,
Mm.
how much was just running and how much was interpersonal with the runners? How did you get along with the runners? Did you enjoy that part of it?
Mm. Oh yes, yes. It was a lot of fun for me too because I would work out with them, and it thrilled me when I had the good runners that could
Yeah, I
beat me.
bet. Yeah.
And
An unusual
yeah,
experience.
yeah, it's an unusual experience when you can create something good in other
Hmm.
people. So I enjoyed it. Yeah, I had a tremendous
Well,
experience.
that's the theme of
Mm.
your whole running career, that you were
Mm.
not individually just looking at what you could accomplish. You looked at the impact that you would
Mm.
have on other people from the very beginning.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. When I started running, I was the slowest kid on the cross country team. I couldn't keep up with anybody. We were new at running, so the coach couldn't just send us out running because we'd end up just walking. So he kept us on the track for about 3 weeks in the beginning, and we were running these darn quarter-mile intervals around the track. We'd run a quarter mile, then we'd jog a quarter mile in recovery, then we'd go back on to the next one, and we'd do 10, 15 of these a day for about 3 weeks. And I could never keep up with anybody. And I was so wimpy that the other kids on the team, they didn't like me. They were hoping that I would
Right.
quit. And so to encourage me to quit, some of the other people started hitting and kicking me when we were running. And I was having a horrible time.
Wow.
And I really didn't enjoy it. I wasn't having fun. I wanted to quit. But the coach every day, he was telling us all that Rogers hates a quitter.
Ah.
Don't quit. So it was very difficult for me to just say, okay, I quit.
Hmm.
Yeah. One of these days, we'd run 14 of these things. We're on the last one. And I was so disappointed and angry when coach started us. I sprinted out into the lead and ran as hard as I could around the corner and onto the back stretch of the track. And then the best guys finally caught me and passed me. And then pretty soon other people, and pretty soon I was way back in the back and running so slow I could hardly finish. And when I finished, I said, that's it. I'm going to tell the coach I'm quitting the team. the next morning, sure enough, the coach came to my class and took me out of world history. So I thought this was good because when he took me out of class, I was going to tell him that I was going to quit the
Uh-huh.
team. And he took me into the back hallway and leaned me against the lockers, and he did all the talking. He said, Gerry, he says, you have an opportunity here that very few people get, and I'm not sure you know about it. And he said, when you took the lead last night, everybody started running faster. And it was a good 15, 20 seconds faster than any of them had ever run before because they didn't want a wimpy guy ahead of them. He says, when everybody's in good shape and running well, you probably won't make varsity. You probably won't get a letter. You probably won't go anywhere with running. But now, when everybody's in bad shape, here's an opportunity that you have just by being Gerry Lindgren. So he was talking to me about acting crazy and taking the lead and sprinting out. And so that became my whole running career. I was never wanting to win a race. I never wanted to be the champion. I never wanted to be in the Hall of Fame, anything like that. All I wanted to do was make other people better. And I could do that by sprinting out and running a hard
Uh-huh.
race. It changed my whole
It,
life.
it it is amazing how close you came to not having a running career. So
Mm.
there have been Hall of Fame inductions that you couldn't attend where your coaches spoke for you. How did you feel about those Hall of Fames that came?
I never expected such a thing, but the idea of having a Hall of Fame became
Hmm.
popular. And so I was involved that way. And a lot of times when they started a Hall of Fame, in the beginning, they looked back and they said, oh, we got to put Gerry Lindgren in here first because I was the
Yeah.
original. I ended up in a lot of Hall of
Yeah, yeah,
Fames.
you sure did. I don't know what the event at your school, if they're gonna, what kind of thing, but they're certainly gonna want to talk about your career and running, and it is a motivational thing. And certainly your book, By the Shadow of Gerry Lindgren, is motivational for both runners and people who aren't runners. Be
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Did you think of that? Was the book written for runners? It was a book on running. Was it written for runners or written for everybody?
It was written for
Okay.
everybody. It wasn't just for runners. It was to
Hmm.
motivate people and to give them a little bit of positive
Yeah.
feedback. Yeah.
Can,
Mm.
can we talk one more area of running in the time frame that you had some insight to? What was your involvement when the professional track circuit was launched? And what was that
Uh,
all about? And what was the thinking of the running community when that happened?
well, there was both negative and
Uh-huh.
positive. The positive was that runners were very controlled by the AAU and could never make any money or go any place, so there was a need for a pro
Hmm.
circuit. The negative was that the way it was set up, you'd be running against your sisters
Oh my.
every week. Same people in the race in this town, and then you'd go and race in that town. And so it was set up wrong from the very
Hmm.
beginning. And it would have been a lot better if each city had their own running group professionals and they would compete against another city.
Uh-huh.
Then it would have been a lot
Right,
better.
like a
Yeah.
sports league. Right.
Right.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's
Yeah.
a transition that the sport just had to go through and had to make a mistake. What do you think about the
Mm,
nature of the sport today? Are you a fan? Are you following Olympic trials and racing, the big world of sports today?
yeah. I keep up with sports a little bit. This year I'm keeping up a little better because it's an
Hmm.
Olympic year and there's a lot of people that are running extremely well this year and competing in other events really well. So it's going to be a good year for the Americans,
Yeah.
I think. So I'm really up on it as much as I can get over in Hawaii, but it should be a good year. I look forward to it.
And how long is your visit to the mainland this trip? One
One
week and
week.
then back home.
I'll go home.
Okay.
Yeah, I go back on next Saturday.
Okay. I think a thing I should do is get this published right away so people can hear from you while you're here. I'll get this
Hmm.
out right away. I'll just get a special edition. I really appreciate your time. It was quite a while ago we talked. We went through a lot of fun races in
Hmm.
detail. We talked about the Russian dual meet that was on the U.S. soil and some of your amazing races. Of course, your injuries, your journey, your personal story now, living in Hawaii. Just I'm just curious about how many different places have you lived in Hawaii? Once you got there, have you moved around or did you find a place for you right away?
Yeah, for about the first couple of years, I moved around, lived in about three different
Hmm.
places. But then I found the condo in Hawaii Kai, and it was a little bit too expensive. But everything here is a little bit too
Yeah.
expensive, so I bought it, and then I had to buy the fee because it was on Bishop Estate land, and they decided to sell the fee to everybody, and the fee was more expensive than the home.
Wow. Ah.
uh, so I've been in debt the whole time I've been here. I still owe about $100,000 on the place that I don't have. I don't have that kind of money. One of my Facebook friends has even started a
Right.
GoFundMe
Yeah.
page to try to help me out. I've had a couple of strokes in the last couple of
Ah.
years, 3 years or so, and that has added a lot of problems to my life in terms of finances.
Right.
And so he's hoping I can raise enough money that I could pay off some of my hospital bills.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's where we are with those. That something good will probably come of it.
Yeah, yeah. We'll put it on
Hmm.
the podcast. We've talked about it. Lots of people know about the GoFundMe that has gotten started, but I'm not sure it's so widely known. So we'll do what we can here. We appreciate your
Hmm.
time and make sure people know that. Yeah,
Thank you.
because all
Okay,
you've
thank you
done for
very much.
other people and for running, it's been a great contribution. It'd be great if the whole community can help out a little bit if they can. Sure.
Yeah, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
any other stories you think are quintessential Gerry Lindgren stories? It's fun just to have a
Mm,
chat and talk about what comes.
you've been very thorough before and today. I can't think of anything we've
Yeah,
left
it's
out.
great. It's interesting to find out about your memorabilia that went to Finelli's garage and preserving that. When you look back at your running career, the timing of it, that you started in the 60s, was that a perfect time for you? Where you grew up, all the little twists and turns of life, and like you say, you came very close to quitting the
Mm,
team. What if you had been born 20 years earlier or 20 years later? Do you ever think about how that would
mm.
be that you would have been competing against different people, or is that something that ever goes through?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Oh, oh, yes. All the time. I think if I had been born earlier, uh, I would have gone into, grow up in a different environment for
Right?
running. Or if I'd been born much later, I'd be in a different age group and different type of things would have
Hmm.
happened. But I had to be right where I was exactly. But I think that being there at that exact is important because when I started running, we were at the lull in distance running. And we weren't, as a nation, we weren't that
Hmm.
good. And all of a sudden, within a year or 2 years, America had the best distance runners community in the world. And suddenly we're very competitive. The world has gotten away from us again because it takes a lot of work to get up there to that
Mm.
level. And some of the other nations have been able to do more work than we have.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
It's fascinating and motivating and inspiring to go back and I'm so happy that many of the
Hmm.
races are recorded. I think having your insights and reflections on this, it's just such a pleasure to talk to you, Gerry. I really appreciate your time. And I
Oh,
know
good.
that everybody that gets to hear your voice is inspired and enjoys it. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for
All right.
having me.
We'll talk again sometime, Gerry. Maybe after this, maybe we'll get your
Okay.
reflections on how this week went and see what they get up to with you
Yeah.
there in Brooklyn. Have a great week, Gerry. All
Okay.
right,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.